Had a little Snoopy shower roll through here about, I don't know, 7:30, quarter to 8, something like that. Uh, had some crews already out, couple still here getting ready on the luncheon pad to get out. Didn't last but about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You could actually see blue sky around it, but it was just like Mother Nature's way, I guess, of just reminding us that, hey, here we go. Here's a little treat for you. So, didn't amount to anything. I mean, hundredths of an inch, but it was just kind of funny that it was just nothing out there, and all of a sudden, boom, it's raining right here on our shop. And I'm not so sure it was raining at the end of the street at where you get onto the regular road from our shop, quite honestly. But anyways, hey, so right now it's beautiful outside, nice and sunny. Everything's looking good, but temperature's supposed to be really nice today. Things are rolling around to the gosh, let me think about this a second. Um, Mid 70s, I think today is what they're talking about. Yeah, going to. I forgot about my weather. Yeah, I did write my weather down. So, but hey, we got a great day going on. Weather's going to be great. Going to get a little bit windy this afternoon, but that'll be okay for sure. I mean, it won't be too windy. We're going to talk about the wind a little bit today here in a minute. But before we get into all that stuff, I want to give a big shout out to Turf Nerds getting us rocking and rolling this morning. Evan and Greg and Eric and Jennifer Jones. Appreciate everything they do on their show. And Daniel with the pump station right before me. And here we are to Profit Time on Hump Day. Yes, indeedy. So we're going to try to entertain and educate a little bit today. And I want a little bit of education rocking back your all's way to me as well, something that I can take and utilize within my business to make it different and better than it was before I hopped on here 3 minutes ago in 26 seconds. So, anyways, that's what the plan is today. And I hope your week's going well. Hope you've made some good accomplishments so far this week. And I know we have here at WLS. And we're looking forward to a great day today, doing a little landscaping work today, a little mowing today. Good morning, Seth. Appreciate you hopping on here with us, buddy. It's always appreciated because without you guys, my show doesn't do too much. I just sit here and look at a wall and talk to myself. So I really appreciate you guys texting and letting me know you're in here. If you're new listening to us here on Turf's Up Radio, here's a number. My number, you can text directly in at 502-550-8307. It's 502-550-8307. It's always great to know we got some new listeners out there. And your feedback's always awesome, man. You don't, and you know, if you're new, I want you to know, if you're new and listening to me, I want you to know that you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't agree with what you hear, and that's okay. That really is. I mean, I don't want a bunch of yes people out there. You know, used to call them yes men in corporate America, but now it's yes people, which is right because there's men, women, and some people identify as other things. So I don't care what you identify as. The only thing I care about is you're here on Turf's Up Radio trying to make our industry and your business better. And that's what my goal is. That's just simply my goal, to give you some ideas from a guy that's been in the business 47 years and started with a 22-inch push mower and an electric weed eater. Not the battery weed eaters. I don't even think they were even out at that point in time. They might have been. I don't know. I don't think so. But when I say electric, like really electric, cord attached to a socket that you walked around a yard with. My dad got me a 22-inch Murray lawnmower, and I'm not even so sure they're out there anymore, and 200 feet of extension cord and with a weed eater. So, yeah, that's how this whole thing got started. I hear you, Mike. Mike said they've always called them kiss asses. Yeah, those two, you know. So we they all go. There's many names. There's many names by which different things go by, but yeah. Oh my God, that's funny, Mike. But yeah, we're headed toward the 90s weather-wise here in Louisville later this weekend, this week and weekend, as we're cruising on into Memorial Day. So seems like a long ways away, but man, it's already May 13th. Can y'all believe that? It's, I swear to goodness, it was just like not too long ago we were sitting here talking about it being January 1st, you know? And here we are. We're five months into the season or new year, and it was season too, I guess, for you full service companies, right? I mean, if you were doing snow or fert and weed and winter applications, whatever it is, you know, it's different for each and every one of us. But point is, we're almost halfway through. That is almost hard to believe, you know. And I mean, I know, well, Wayne, your math's not quite right. Katie's going to bop you in the back of the head. But no, I know we're not halfway through. But I mean, we're moving right along. I mean, we would be 5/12ths of the way through, right, Katie? Wouldn't that be the correct math on 5 months into 12? 5/12. So five divided by 12 is what? Point, point four or something? What was that? Very good. 0.41. Woohoo. Yeah. Daddy's coming through with the math on the mind. What do you call that? Mental math, right? Or what? Yeah. I was guesstimating, kind of like a lot of people do on their jobs. Hey, that used to be my favorite way to do jobs. You know, guesstimate them, you know, throw a dart. Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. Matter of fact, I couldn't have planned a better intro than that. We're going to talk about that. And but before we get into talking about that side of it, gosh, that would have been perfect, man. God, I wish I'd have had that saved. But anyway, we oh my goodness. It does seem like we're further along in the season. It's because it warmed up quickly here in our market. I don't know about you guys, but you know, it warmed up quick. It got really warm. Now we're having more of spring type weather until, you know, this weekend or Friday, I think, and this weekend when we get into the high 80s, low 90s. But we got started off pretty good, pretty good. A little bit too dry. I know a lot of us can attest to that, but who knows? Who knows, man? We'll see where it all leads us. You know, all we're doing, we're just on the bus for the ride. Mother Nature's up there with her cap on, driving the bus, and you know, every once in a while she opens the door and lets somebody on or off. Yeah, that's the reality of it. But appreciate you guys being on here today, letting me know you're with us. I got a couple things we're going to talk about today. I think you're going to really enjoy. One is story of the day, if you will. I'm going to talk a little bit about a comment that we had on one of our YouTube videos. Some of you guys probably saw it, and the video and the comment. And it wasn't a bad comment. It wasn't throwing hate mail at us, but we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to, and I'm going to get Daniel's input on that too, because Daniel always gets really excited about these kind of comments. And then also we're going to talk again about a Smoking Joe that listens to us all pretty regularly here on Turfs Up Radio in Central Kentucky. Had something come up and had a post, and I wanted to talk about his post as well. And then Craig sent me something right before the show came on. So, man, I appreciate you guys, man. I mean, just keeping me on my toes and giving me good content to talk about, you know, because I mean, it's current affairs, right? There used to be a show called Current Affairs. I guess it's still on. I don't know if it is or it isn't. But yeah, you guys keep me rocking down the road and keeping it honest. I'll say that. Craig says it feels like we're further into the calendar. He said their third season already. They had winter, spring, and summer like weather already. So Absolutely. I know it's really dry down there where Craig's at, so hopefully that changes. Seth said it's really dry, where he's at in central Kentucky. I know they got some extreme situations going on in central Kentucky. Ours is just a moderate drought, I think, here in Louisville. We're on the northern fringe of that, but uh, I don't know. We'll see. Seth says he's worried about his farmer friends and the deer herd. So absolutely, we got to think of our furry friends out there that aren't getting the growth and the plant growth and things that they count on to munch on and survive. So don't know. I guess Mother Nature takes care of them too overall, but a lot of different things going on. So a lot of different things we're going to talk about. But hey, before we get into talking about it, hey, we're going to take a short break. I got a text earlier. I'm supposed to get some service, just regular service work done, and I'm just curious on this with you guys. This is just opinion, your opinion, and that's just it. It really, I appreciate your opinion on this, but I'm supposed to have somebody come service my air conditioner, just routine service today. And I talked to them 6 or 7 weeks ago, scheduling this up when they scheduled it. And I need something for my thing called a humidifier pad. What it is, I don't know, don't care, but I'm getting a notice on my thermostat, where that says, "Hey, humidifier pad needs to be replaced." So I told them that when I scheduled it, right? And so they sent me a thing, said, "Hey, we're going to be to your house today." Blah blah blah. Sent the text out, okay, which was really cool. And I said, "Great, glad to hear it." I said, "But I want to make sure that my humidifier pad's going to be on the truck when your service tech gets there. This should be noted 6 weeks ago when I called, or y'all called me and set the appointment." And I said, "Please acknowledge that you have received my message and that my humidifier pad is going to be on the service truck when it arrives." Now, their response to me, without saying no, or that's the way I'm taking it, y'all tell me how y'all take it. "We have all of that noted and we will discuss at appointment." Now, is that an answer? I don't think that's a good answer, personally. That to me is saying, no, we don't have it, but we still want to come service to get the service out of the way. But then they're going to have to return, which means I'm going to have to take another hour or so to run home, you know. So I sent back a text to them just a minute ago, right as I was coming on the air. It says, "If it's not on the truck, I want to reschedule until it is." Is that being hard to deal with? Am I being that customer? You know, God's giving me, yeah, uh, yeah, yeah. Kyle says I just wait till they text me and say they're there, and then ask him if it's on his truck. If he says no, then I haven't wasted my time going.
Yeah.
You know, their time.
That's when you get put on the list of we'll make sure it's right before we come is when it starts to eat their money.
Right. Because doesn't that response sound like, "Hey, well, hey, we have all that noted and we'll discuss an appointment," like we don't have it? I think that's a nice,
Certainly leads to one to think that, yes.
yeah. So, I'm not far away, from my house. I mean, I'm home in 15 minutes. So I think I'm going to go Kyle's route. When they text me and say they're on their way, I'll say, "Okay, when your tech gets there," or a lot of times that comes directly from the tech, you know? So that's a good idea, Kyle. That comes directly from the tech when they're on their way. So we'll see what they say. And if they call me, I'm putting them on live so all of y'all can hear it. We're going to see how they handle it. Because, I'm not trying to be hard to deal with. I mean, we have customers that want to make sure something's going to be done. So, I mean, I don't want to make two trips. They don't want to make two trips. I'm trying to save them two trips. I'm sure Mr. Drexler would appreciate that. you know, even if their scheduling team can't appreciate it. But anyways, we'll keep you posted, and you might be right here on the loop on Turfs Up Radio if they call. So would that be fair to put them on, Daniel? Let's decide.
Sure. 100%.
Okay.
They have nothing to hide, right?
Yeah, we don't, and
It's
they
not
should.
confidential information. And if it is, it's your information that you're willing to share.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. I just thought we'd have a real life phone conversation on customer service, and see see what it's going to be like, you know. So, but anyways, hey, getting down to a serious note for profit time today. We put a video up. We did a video, and we put it. It was just on YouTube, right, Daniel?
Yes.
It went out on our YouTube, so everybody on the planet has access to it. You know, or anybody not on the planet that somehow's looking at videos on YouTube. But
Sure.
but uh, but anyways, it was the right way to price a job.
The only right way to price a mowing job.
The only right way to price a mowing job. And we got this response from a guy. Okay. And obviously it's a smaller company, and that's okay. But I want to give you his response, right? That's fair, right?
Just, yeah, the comment. This is just
Yeah.
a comment.
This is just his comment, right? And then I'll tell you how we handle it on our end. You know, Daniel gave some good feedback on it, but it but within our video, for you guys that haven't seen it, okay, we just talked about the importance of having a methodology in place for cost recovery, okay, and not just, well, I'm doing this because I'm small and I can do it cheaper kind of concept. Fits perfectly to this. So this guy says, I don't know what the industry is doing. I keep my costs to a minimum and pass the savings along to my customers. An owner with no employees and less overhead can still keep a decent profit margin. I buy used low R equipment, didn't hire Juan and Jose, don't waste money on vinyl wraps and advertising. I offer a good value service, do everything I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. Some other operators don't like that I cost less, but then again, I didn't make them go out and buy that new truck and new Skag Cheetah, LOL. So the comments are well taken. We're not offended. But he still didn't address the methodology for which he calculates cost. He's telling us that he goes out and buys less expensive stuff, which is fine. You don't have to buy brand new. Hell, I've never told anybody in 30 years of consulting that they have to buy, or longer, I don't know, 1990.
36.
36 years of consulting that, hey, go out and buy a new truck, go out and buy, so I've never said that. And I don't think this is really a slam toward Profits Unlimited. I think it's just he's saying, it's your fault if you go out and ego buy or buy too much new stuff and get mad at the guy that's charging less because they don't go out and buy new stuff. But we've responded accordingly.
Well, we didn't respond yet, other than just a very basic comment.
Yeah.
Which was, we responded back asking how he determined his pricing.
Right.
Because none of that comment matters unless you actually determined your pricing based on those comments within that comment, right?
Correct.
Like if he doesn't know how much it cost, just because you bought a used piece of equipment with low hours that costs less than a new Skag Cheetah, LOL, doesn't mean that you shouldn't know your cost per hour for that mower.
Correct.
I would bet my life.
Don't say that. He ain't worth
100%. I would bet. I would bet.
Damn, Daniel's going all in.
Penny I've ever earned and ever will earn. It's not about being offended. It's about, like, don't say, I don't know what I don't know what the industry is doing, or what I don't know what the industry is. What was the exact phrase?
I don't know what the industry is doing.
Don't say you don't know what the industry is doing when you don't know what you're doing. If you truly don't, which, like I said, I'm willing to bet every penny I have that you don't know how much it costs you per hour for that used low hour piece of equipment, mower, whatever it may
Correct.
be.
I think you're right on target with that.
And if you do, then that's perfectly fine. But you also make many, many more. There's one statement that I would say this is a solid statement within that whole comment, and that's I do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. That's great. That's perfect. That's the equivalent of we show up. Now,
Right.
do you really? Maybe. Are you likely to do that sustainably? Probably not, because you are obviously undercharging and overworking, most likely, because you have to make up for it with what you think are decent profit margins. But how do you know that if you didn't know your cost? You
Correct.
can't tell me I'm making X percent if you don't know what your costs are.
You really haven't. Yeah, because to the point, not to keep reiterating the same thing, but the fact of the matter is, just because you start out with a lower cost on a cost of the equipment going in, here's to your point exactly, Daniel. When you start out with a lower cost going in, you're going to have expense somewhere on equipment, either direct cost of purchase price or maintenance and repairs and downtime on buying older equipment that's got to be maintained.
Right.
And where more than a new piece of equipment does. So where a lot of people get confused on the two is they'll say, and I've heard it a zillion times, and I'm sure we'll probably hear it a zillion more times. But they say, well, that's not doesn't matter because I work on it myself.
Right.
So they're not valuing.
They're not paying themselves for their labor.
They're not paying themselves. They feel like because they're not writing a check or using a credit card or whatever, how you want to pay an equipment dealer or somebody to work on it, they're not looking at that as an expense. Well, it's my time. I do, I'll put the maintenance into it. I'll put the belt on or the hoses.
I'll do it for free because I can't charge for it within my pricing because I got to keep my prices low.
Yes. So, they don't value their time and they don't understand the fact that, going back to what you talk about all the time, Daniel, we all get 24 hours a day. How we use those hours is up to us. So why, if I've got a lawn service, even though if it's a small time lawn service, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to hear anybody hear me saying that I'm making fun of one truck operations or two truck operations. I'm not. I'm just saying if I'm any size company, I should spend and the smaller I am, the more important it is because you're probably not going to have an on-staff mechanic. You are the on-staff mechanic. Okay. Why would you not want to spend your time mowing lawns or spraying lawns or whatever it is that you do versus taking an hour and a half or 2 hours to work on a piece of equipment and think that, well, hey, I didn't have to pay any labor on that. I just bought the part and did it myself. Why not charge enough or use equipment that is going to give you the opportunity to keep working versus saying, hey, I'll do it myself and I can charge less? I don't understand that mindset.
Yeah.
It's because they don't know what they don't know.
Right. Thinking that they do know that they're saving money and passing that along, as this person said, passing that saving along to their customer. You're not saving anything. You're robbing yourself.
Right. So, I get his point that, hey, I'm buying, low hour used equipment, and that's a great thing to do. No doubt about it. Let somebody else take the hit of the new equipment. But don't forget about the other costs that are associated with equipment, and that is the indirect cost of the maintenance and repairs and downtime that come along with older equipment. Now, I'm not saying that, you go out and you buy a machine that's got 500 hours on it. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like we tell people all the time with our cost sheets. If you get a really good deal on a piece of equipment, let's say you get a $10,000 lawnmower for $6,000, you know, unless you're going to replace it with another $6,000 lawnmower, you're setting yourself up familiar doing your cost for failure, doing your cost recovery on $6,000.
Right.
You know,
Which, as we all know, there's probably not a whole lot of cost recovery calculation going on, even if if this person thinks they're getting the mower for the same price in X amount of years.
and where he says making a decent profit margin.
Right.
I'm like you. I'd be willing to bet, not because it's this person that responded,
but because
man,
it's the mentality of the person that responded. It's the
yes,
comments that lead you to not just believe, but almost know for a fact that there's no way that, I mean, we all know how they're figuring out their profit margin, right?
right.
We all know.
And how's that?
I mean, they're probably going, oh, you know what? My truck cost this, or my gas cost me this for this job and this. My shirt,
Yeah.
I had to get a new, roll of paper towels because I spilled my burrito on my shirt. So I'm taking that out of this one. And,
Yeah. There's no real
my
methodology
cost for
to
the
the
job
method.
was $12 based on, the things that I can physically, tangibly see and experience.
Yeah.
And I'm, charged Miss Smith 35. So I made, that's my profit.
Yeah. That's what I made.
And they're not thinking about any of the other things you're talking about. They're not thinking about, oh, I need to pay myself, and that's not profit. They're not, it's the same conversation we had a while back about the difference between net and gross,
Yes.
or it's at least a very similar conversation that on the profit side of it is. So I don't know. I just think it's a very the first statement is almost, it's ironic, It's like this person thinks they have discovered something that is so revolutionary. All you have to do to make money is do the things he said,
Buy used equipment.
buy used equipment, don't advertise, charge less, and you'll have a successful business. I don't know what you guys are doing out there. I don't know how you guys are failing. All you got to do is charge less and, you know,
Buy
not
cheaper
buy
stuff.
cheap equipment and not hire anybody. Like, that is, to believe that you're like some Elon Musk business person because you think that that's a sustainable and working model when you don't know your cost is just, that's what's so mind-boggling. How you can have so much arrogance and confidence about this model, and everybody else who advertises or buys a new equipment must be idiots.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like yeah, every business in the last 200 years who've ever spent a dime on advertising, they just do it because it's fun. They like to just throw away, 10% of their money or whatever they're spent. Apple
Right.
likes to throw away $600 million a year on advertising just for fun. There's no benefit to advertising. We just like to throw it out.
Yeah. And
Like,
and it's funny, but it's not funny, Daniel. That's the thing about it. And I can hear him or her saying, I'm not sure what it is, doesn't matter. But that same fact, why don't spend money on vinyl wraps and advertising? He's probably the same guy that doesn't have proper insurance. He's
yeah,
not properly insured.
yeah. There's
You
a
know, um,
decent shot of that.
there's a decent shot of that. And the reality of it is,
Because
hey,
insurance is a waste of money.
yeah, insurance is a waste of money. Why do I want to spend that? That was another comment we had.
Right.
You know,
Not on this
not on this.
specifically, but it's
Yeah,
the same mindset. It just infiltrates people in different ways. Sometimes you get the full infiltration, and sometimes you'd get just that one certain thing's a waste of money. But this was a great comment because it literally covered
all of it.
95% of the
Yeah,
things we talk about here on Profits Unlimited.
yeah,
And it was perfect. It was like the perfect example of almost what not to do, or
right,
like how not to think about your business.
right, right. That is an absolute statement of fact. We couldn't have wrote this any better ourselves of how not to run your business.
Right.
All things included. You know, and again, we're not saying any part of it is necessarily. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are
There's certain
saying.
parts that aren't inherently wrong, like buying not new equipment. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. There's nothing inherently wrong about not having a vinyl
Final rep.
wrapping or not having an employee.
Or,
Nothing inherently wrong with any of those things. It's the reasoning and rationale that this person's using as to why those things are wrong. That is why it's wrong.
that's why it's wrong. Yeah. You know, and to say, that, and then there's one other thing, and then we'll move along here, but I think it's important is some operators don't like that I cost less. Yes, we don't like it that you're undercutting everybody, but are you undercutting because you don't know what you don't know? And the answer to that is yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's fine to know your cost and then figure out your price point. But I'm like you. The more I thought about you saying you bet your life on it, I'd bet my life on it too. That he doesn't understand. If you said, "Hey, what's your break even point?" He wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Hey, why is your minimum $30 or $50 or $100, whatever it is? It doesn't matter what it is because everybody's break even point's different. But the point is here's a very significant point to this for everybody on Turfs Up Radio and everybody within the industry that number one is he considers himself a professional because he does what he says he's going to do. And that's fine. And that is a professional move. But also give yourself the opportunity to be a professional by understanding the business side of your business more. Not just, hey, I do what I say I'm going to do and I buy cheap equipment. I don't have to advertise. Well, I'm going to tell you, as a one truck operation, if you got to advertise, you got a problem. I'm just going to say that. I mean, there's so much work out there to be done.
Especially if you're doing basically mow for cheap.
Mowing, yeah. I mean, you could fill a schedule up in 2 weeks. A little bit of hustle, little door knocking, which I guess is advertising. But I mean, you wouldn't have to have an advertising budget for sure. And if you do, you need to reconsider. I mean that's just
especially modern day with Facebook and all the other ways you can say, "Hey, I'll mow your grass for $25." Like,
yeah.
I mean, surely get enough business off of just being the cheapest guy, as we know that happens.
But and then it does not see the value in hiring somebody. That kind of bothers me too.
Right.
Yeah, hiring can be a pain in the butt. We all know that. Retention can be a pain in the brain for sure with, employees. But the reality of it is when you're running this type of mindset to run your business, that may be why you're having some challenges and just say, well, man, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah. Or I think even to the bigger point that they're maybe trying to make is that it's expensive to hire someone. It's going to be a cost above and beyond the benefit that I will receive within my business to hire someone.
Yeah.
Which is an absurd thing to say. Like, that's an absurd statement. If that were true, why would Ford and all these massive companies have thousands of employees? Because they are producing for their business. They're making the business. Yes, they cost the business as well, but Ford and whoever else also knows that this particular person costs me X amount of dollars. I need to generate X amount of dollars from them.
Yeah. Craig makes that exact point here. He says, this guy isn't running a business, he's running himself. He won't have a company to sell.
Correct. Yeah, he's created a job.
He's created a job for himself. And when he turns an ankle or breaks an ankle or breaks an arm or a wrist and he can't go out and perform the task, now who the hell's going to do the work and how are you going to support yourself or your family?
Right.
That's the end result of that. That's the drawback of this mindset, So I don't know, Daniel. I'm glad that you got the response out, and this response, that we're looking at. And
I'd be curious to see what his response to our actual comment back was on how did you figure out your pricing? I would be curious to see that
Yeah.
if he responds and just to see what it is.
Right.
I'm sure it's going to be something along the lines of, well, I take this, and this, and then that's my cost.
Yeah. I
You know,
take my expenses for the year divided by 2,000 hours, or something. And that's a crude way of doing it, but at least it is an effort. And doesn't work. Doesn't work
well,
because
they
there's
probably paid
no
their mower off
protection.
a couple of years ago, right? And they so
You know,
that they don't add that into their cost.
yeah, my mower's paid
Their
for.
truck's probably, maybe something they got, they've been driving for a couple of years, or a hand me down, or it was my first truck and I'm still, I work on it 20 hours a week, so it's still running. And so that's not a cost.
Seth said, "Bless his heart." Oh my God! I share this, and I almost feel like I'm wasting your all's time talking about this on Turfs Up. But the reality of it is, you know, when we say, there's plenty of work out there, and there is, but there's also a whole lot of this out there, and you know,
And that's why you should really be thoughtful about the model you choose to run your business. And I think is the whole overarching point for Turfs Up is you cannot compete against this person. There's no way you can compete because they're swimming in the pool that only cares about how cheap can you get.
right,
And there's no way. There's no way someone who doesn't know their cost will ever be there like what's the where do they draw the line?
right,
Is it okay, well, I was going to do it for 40, but they said they'll do 35, so I'll do 35, or 35 and I'll do 30. If you truly want what uh who was it? Craig, I think, just said, commented on, he's not creating a business. If you truly want the business side of it, like you have to, fish in some other ponds where this person is not fishing because they're using, TNT.
yeah, right. No, that's exactly it. And we look at this comment, and then we go to another comment that I saw that was pretty good actually. I had Joe, who listened to us, Smoker Joe, who listens to us quite a bit here on Turfs Up Radio. He had a comment the other day on social media about, hey, I'm going to have to reach out to my customers, with fuel pricing, and, tell them that, hey, everybody's going to have an increase. And, you know, I, and I commented on that too. And I like Joe a lot, and the mindset is right. Yeah, we need to, but here's I want to elaborate a little bit on that mindset. And a matter of fact, Joe, I want to thank you, not only for putting that in social media, but it also provided Daniel and I with an opportunity to put together a good video that is it out yet?
It is out, yes.
Yeah, um, about that. Hey, yeah, gas prices. We talked about that last Wednesday on my show. That looking at fuel pricing, just from 3.75 a gallon to 4.75 a gallon, just a dollar difference. Okay, what that looks like in mowing. Okay, what's that really look like in mowing? And the reality of it is, yes, it does change your pricing some. I think, when we talked about that, when we did the math on it, it was like a 40 horsepower Vanguard EFI motor. We had to pick one, But point is, look at whatever you're using, right? See what the fuel consumption rate is for an hour of running time, and then look at, hey, how much running time do we have on that mower? A lot of people aren't going to know that because they're not tracking it. Hey, I bid it at this, but hey, how long is it really taking, and what's my run time on that? But you should be tracking that. But the point was, and when I responded to Joe, I said, hey, man, just from the standpoint of running time, based on this particular motor, it's about, $1.60 an hour of running time is your additional cost, for fuel only. Okay. And then a gentleman responded underneath it. I don't know if he's in a lawn service or not, but probably is. He said, and it was a very good comment. He said, not just the cost of gas for mowers, but the gas for the truck that transports the mowers. the parts and oil changes, etc., also increase for these small businesses. And there's somebody thinking about cost, right? Hey, it's route density. Route density is very important. That's the good thing, and I'm gonna call it a good thing because let's look at a positive of fuel prices being elevated, regardless of what the reason is. You know, the good thing about fuel costs being as high as they are right now, and I would encourage everybody to check out our video. We actually give some examples, in that video. But the good thing about it is it makes people like, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, Joe. I love you to death, but contractors like Joe that may or may not have a complete cost recovery methodology in place, but they know that, hey, I'm spending a hell of a lot more money on fuel now than I was. So you start to look at your business.
Right.
That's the good thing about fuel pricing.
Yeah.
But my goal is for people to look at all your expenses. Because if you track everything along with your fuel, hey, what's my insurance cost? What are my uniforms cost? What are my cell phones cost? All that additional overhead that we have, and not just say, well, hey, I'm mowing 100 yards a week. That's generating $5,000 a week, or whatever it's generating, and, by the time I buy fuel and pay my insurance and make my truck payment, I've got this left over. If you've got a methodology in place, because here's one thing that doesn't change, and this is where, I want to talk about too, in the response that one gentleman had about the parts and oil changes also increased. The hours of use aren't changing. So oil change frequency is not changing. Belt wear and all, that's not changing from what the norm would be based on anticipated maintenance cost. Now, that belt that you buy may cost more because the dealer you're buying it from or wherever you're buying it from, the black market, whatever, people get creative on where they buy stuff. But regardless of where you buy something, maybe the cost of that belt and that oil and that filter may be elevated some. Okay. I don't know if that's where you were going with that or not on the comment, but the reality of it is the hours of use aren't changing on the equipment. So you look at the fuel and you think, man, that's a direct out of pocket expense right now. And I don't want to beat this fuel thing too hard, but I know a lot of guys are really concerned with it. But if you go to your customers, here's the takeaway from this whole scenario. If you go to your customers and say, I'm going to need to raise your prices by $5 a week or $10 a week or whatever it is, $100 a week because of fuel cost, what? Daniel laughed when I said that. As soon as fuel goes down, they're going to tell you need to take it back the other direction.
Right.
And like, what's the magic number? At what point is fuel too high that now you got to add something to it? Whereas if you were using or know why you charge what you charge sheet, for an example, and you're setting up your budget, of, hey, what do I anticipate fuel cost is going to be? Now I'm going to add how much to it? 60 cents, 70 cents. And that's how I'm going to price my jobs. That's a much better way of pricing your jobs than coming at somebody with a fuel surcharge or a price increase. Right. And then when it goes down, them wanting you to do something, go the other direction with it.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to me, and for anyone out there who may have this same concern as Joe, that, and about Profits Unlimited, about our Know Why You Charge What You Charge, for $200, you could just know these things. And you wouldn't have to guess. Maybe there's still going to be a little stress. I get everybody, even if you're still like, oh man, I hope it doesn't go up to $16 a gallon, something crazy.
Right.
Like, you just know. And so is it really not worth it for you to know that, okay, it's going to cost me, let's say $2, or I need to charge, let's say $2 more per client, So I need to go to everybody and say, hey, this is what our new price is. Versus I don't know what I need to charge.
I'm going to throw a dart at the number.
And I might guess too high, which I probably will, because people, if they really thought it was a $2 difference, they wouldn't be as stressed as they are. So let's say it is another $10 a week or whatever that you're saying. That's enough for someone to potentially go, oh, you're charging me another $40 a month. I might start looking around. You lose one customer because you overshot this, and you've already paid for the know why you charge what you charge.
Right.
So why not just gain access to this tool and know?
And it's going to give, and right.
It's mind-boggling that someone would know this thing is out in existence.
And it's not just going to be relevant for fuel. It's all
right.
Your
It's
expenses go in it.
I mean, this is just one small example.
But fuel turns people's heads because, like I said, it's an out-of-pocket expense right now.
Right.
It's an out-of-pocket expense right now. Yeah. Why you stress out over it, and when there's a simple solution,
right?
And to Daniel's point, and I'll say it, you don't have to use ours. Ours is simple, accurate, and professional. It's not software you got to learn.
I mean, you don't have to, but why not? You know about it. You know it exists. We'll give you, you know us. You're listening to Turfs Up Radio and Profit Time, so you have at least some level of knowing Wayne and potentially trusting him, or knowing, hey, if I don't trust him 100%, let's go and maybe ask somebody that's on his, that text in, or that go to the website and check it. Like, the fact is, this tool exists and you're not using it, but you are stressing about a thing that could be solved by using it.
Yeah, immediately.
Yes, within an hour.
Within an hour, the guesswork's out of bidding any job you want to bid, whether it's mowing, landscaping, snow and ice management, hanging lights. You fill in the blank on what you do. And the cool thing about it is, and this is why guys like it all over the country in Canada, is because we don't tell you what to charge. We show you how to calculate your break-even point. What you want to add above and beyond that to get to, quote unquote, like our buddy said, a decent profit margin,
right?
That's up to you. That's up to you. But what you won't do is leave items out. We just had Mike Rogers on our show just a week or so ago. Got a degree from the School of Wharton Business School. He's got his master's in education, retired principal, start mowing lawns 25 years ago or so. The reality of it is, and y'all heard what he had to say about the simplicity of it, as a degree in accounting, but he uses it. And he has all of his subcontractors using it when he had 900 of them. The point is, you don't have to put yourself through the stress of not knowing what you don't know if you just take a few minutes to sit down and know how put a methodology in place. It's a uniform methodology in any business. Ford Motor Company, Chevrolet, I don't care. Pick a brand. It doesn't matter. Budweiser, whatever. Roadcaster people that make these machines that we're on right now. Successful entrepreneurs and businesses, regardless of their size, those are the ones that understand their cost per hour or cost per unit. And until you decide that that's important for you and your company, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle with it when, God, fuel prices are going up. It's killing me. Well, it doesn't have to. It's like us. I mean, we've had our fuel cost at $4.25 now in our in our cost recovery thing for a couple years, and it's never got close. So for over 2 years, we've been collecting more. We've never had to tell our customers we're going to have a fuel surcharge, even now, because what have we done? We went in and adjusted our fuel up. So any of our new bids that are going out are up on a higher fuel price. So we solicit ours as our price is our price, no fuel surcharges. Because, man, I hate fuel surcharges. Personally, that's just me. Mike said he's got his fuel set at $5.50 a gallon.
There you go.
There you go. So he's not approaching any of his customers wondering how much he needs to change or what he's got it bid that away. And as long as he's under 5.50 a gallon, he's fine. And even if he goes over 5.50 a gallon for a period of time, it's like us. We're not fretting over it because, say, for 2 years we've been collecting, $4.25 a gallon on fuel that was actually costing us, 70, 80% less, or 70 or 80 cents less than that, at least. So whether it's fuel, whether it's insurance, whether it's advertising, it doesn't matter what it is. You got to have a budget developed. You got to implement it into a cost recovery plan. That's the easy solution. Seth says the easiest solution is to mow less. Well, you know what? Absolutely, that would certainly help the guy out. But even for guys that are out there doing lighting, landscaping, fert and weed, any service that you're providing, you're going to be able to calculate your break-even point.
Right. Even if it's electric.
Yeah, even if it's electric.
If you're afraid of the gas prices right now.
Yeah.
I got with 2 cents?
2 cents. We went on hedge trimmers for just fuel only. Okay, I'll make this very, very clear. Fuel and 2-cycle mix only went from 94 cents an hour for us to 2 cents an hour when we went to battery powered hedge trimmers, based on what we pay for a kilowatt hour to recharge that battery. 2 cents an hour over 94 cents an hour. Doesn't sound like a big deal. Well, man, that's only 92 cents an hour. Have you ever sat down and figured out how many hours of service you provide of something a year? That doesn't even take into account the less maintenance and repairs and downtime that you're going to have on battery powered equipment. So even if you want to Daniel's point, even if you want to switch out to some battery powered equipment, our cost sheets doesn't matter what kind of equipment you got, battery, fossil fuel, hamsters running in a cage. It don't matter what you're using to generate power. It will calculate the cost per hour for you. And when you talk about being set free and understanding, it's really cool, when guys, let's talk about Christmas lights for just a second. Because Christmas lights are just very similar, and we don't have nearly enough time to talk about this. But the market itself is up high enough to give people profit margins that don't even understand why they're getting a profit margin. They're just, hey, well, we're at $7 a foot or $9 a foot, or because that's what the market bear, that's what we're charging. Where my break even point, I don't know. I feel like I got my thumb in, whatever. But I'm just, throwing a dart. But the market is up high enough. Same way that's why a lot of guys love snow and make money in snow, even though they don't know truly where their break even point is to run that EXT plow or that wide out or whatever plan it is you like, or brand you like, but hey, when you know that, hey, based on plowable events in my market, my snowplow costs me this much an hour, my spreader costs me this much, my truck costs me this much, my extra maintenance and repairs on my truck because I didn't do snow, it's got that elevated. The market itself is taking care of a lot of the pricing on that. But again, it goes back to, why wouldn't you want to know? Why wouldn't you want to know on every service that you're doing what it costs you to do it and what, on average, you're putting in your pocket? And the reason I say that, and we're going to leave it at that today, the bad thing about what we do in the service related industry, whether we're doing any landscaping or whatever it is, any service related business, it's generally not the exact amount of time to complete the task every time. It's not like you're developing an Apple computer and you sell an Apple computer at a flat rate. Well, that's what it costs each time on production, there is some service time variation when you're doing a reoccurring service over and over again for somebody that's got a lot of weather driven influence. Okay. But you can really narrow it down and come into a pretty daggone good average time frame to come up with an average profit margin and know why you're hitting a target or you're not hitting a target. It's up to you if you care. Do you care enough to care? I don't know. It's not my decision to make. Judge Judy gets mad when somebody tries to tell somebody else what they're thinking. But all I know is when I was thinking like a lot of people think in this industry, I wasn't having nearly as much fun doing what I'm doing as I do the last 30 years, or probably longer than that, 35 years, 40 years. Yeah, long time. Longer than some of you guys listening to us are old. The point is, it's your money. It's your business. Give it the respect it does. And remember, profit is not a dirty word. And the only way you're going to know what that profit margin is to know where that break even cost is. Stay tuned to Turf's Up Radio all day long. We appreciate you. Thanks, Daniel, for hopping on. And thank you, everybody, Craig and Seth and Mike and God, everybody else. I appreciate you guys texting in like you do each and every day that we're on. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you on Friday. Remember, profit is not a dirty word.